is the subconscious mind. You might think that you know what you're doing. You might think that you're choosing certain things. You might be attached to certain things, and your mind continues to tell you to purchase those things or allow yourself to experience those things. But what's behind the choice that you're making? There's a choice that you're making, and that choice is subliminal. Most people don't understand that many of the choices they make, and when I say many, I'm almost talking about 100% in a lot of cases. Those choices are made by a subconscious mind. Where does that subconscious mind come from? If you go back into your childhood, especially in the years from the womb until, say, 7 years old, as a little child, you experienced many things. You had your eyes open. You watched what was going on around you. You had some sense of awareness of what was happening. And what was happening seemed to be consistent. It would happen quite a bit. Now, most of us, by the time we're 4, we really don't have a lot of language. You don't have a lot of speech. We don't necessarily have words or thoughts in our heads. So how can the subconscious mind be created then? The subconscious mind is based upon the feelings, experiences that you had about what was going on around you up until 5 to 7 years old. Now, the subconscious mind doesn't judge anything. The subconscious mind just said, this is the way it is. So you might say, somebody would come up and say, this is love. We love you, honey. And love in that moment could be putting you into a closet. Love could be possibly giving you a hug. Love could be, we love you because you did something nice for somebody else. But in most cases, it's usually about what's going on in the experience of being at home, day after day after day. So you might say your mind, your subconscious mind, comes up with definitions of what is. There's no judgment on those definitions. It just is what it is. And since each one of us have a unique experience of growing up, things get formed by you as an individual based upon your surroundings. That continues over and over again until finally by the time you're 7, some say 8, some say 9, some even say 5. Depends on the expert or the person that you're talking to or the indigenous culture that you might be going back to. But by the time you're 5 to 9, let's say, it's solidified itself. And basically says, the basic premise is that this is what life is. And as you go out into the world, you then are choosing things that match up with the way life is according to your subconscious mind. Now we can get into a lot of the scientific understandings of what happens in your neurological system, the chemical makeups in your body that cause your body to react a certain way. There's some experts out there that you could check out to understand how that all comes about and how it solidifies itself, not only in the psychological way, but also in the physical ways. But really, the proof of this whole thing is that once you become 5 to 9 years old, you have now developed a way of looking and being in the world based upon your experiences. You search that out in society. You walk out the door and you are looking to match up the exact same thing. And in most cases, most of us don't understand that. We don't know that that's what's really going on. We think we're trying to fit in. We think that we have a great job. We think we have a great marriage. We think we have great relationships. We think we have great hobbies. We have habits and so on. All of it is developed from the subconscious mind. So when you create the subconscious mind, you're creating what is known as an ego. It's the beginning stages of your ego. It's the beginning stages of your program, your strategy. The indigenous cultures in the early mystical schools called it the lower personality. That box is a box that said, this is the way life is to be lived. This is what you will choose. And it's very limited. It's limited based upon the experiences that you had as a child. Now, personally, I like Carl Jung a lot. He's a spiritual psychologist, psychiatrist. And from Carl, we got 8 program strategies, certain traits, certain ways of being in the world. And it seems as if everybody can identify with at least one of these and understand why they're doing what they're doing. But it can be overwhelming. This isn't easy because you might think you're happy. You might think things are going according to plan, but in reality, the plan is the ego's plan. The plan is the box's plan. The plan is the strategy's plan. You might say it's a false sense of happiness. It's a happiness based upon the experiences you had, which are very limited. You might say those experiences you had as a child were limited to 2 people that were in your house, if you had a mother and a father, of course. They're limited, those experiences that you had there. They're not experiences that you really had worldwide. You had experiences just in the home. And so they're very limited in their scope. Because of that limitation, we are given, once again, a definition of happiness or a definition of how to be in life and so on and so forth, a definition of how we look at ourselves, how we fit in, if we do. And so based upon that, you go out into the world and you recreate that box over and over again, which limits you in how you're going to experience life. You might say that life is going to tell you how to experience itself.
So the life that you experienced in those early formative years has basically told you how to show up in the world, and you just continue that on.
Correct.
And so for people who followed that definition of this is how the world works and this is how I need to show up in life, and I find this kind of job and this kind of partner and feel like they did everything right, and now they are suffering from a feeling of being incomplete or unhappy or unfulfilled. What has happened there? They've done everything right according to the subconscious program.
In a lot of the work that I do with people that show up at my door, the work, you might say, is to redefine themselves. But the first thing we have to do is understand where they're coming from. The first step is to understand what we've created. With that understanding, I can start getting a larger scope of what's going on. This is a very scary moment in a lot of cases, because as most of those people, as they do come in, they're really confused. They're confused because they've done everything right according to the definitions of what they were told. They've done everything right as far as getting that good job, getting the college degree, making sure you have some letters after your name, having kids, having a house, having things in your life that show you're successful. All of this stuff that's out there, outside of themselves. Because really, in the deepest sense of subconscious mind, the ego is really attempting to have you look outside yourself for the answers, not inside yourself. And as we look outside ourselves, that definition that we were given doesn't seem to fit. It might work for a while, here and there, but it doesn't work all the time. And so you're continually chasing after a definition, and you don't even know it. Until one day, as some of these people do when they show up, they come to a crossroads, you might say. They come to a place in their life where they're supposed to be happy, or they've made it to the top of the mountain, and they don't even know what the experience was on getting to the top of the mountain. They come in with a false sense of success and know that something's missing. How they got there was through the subconscious mind, and of course through the ego, trying to keep telling them to keep doing it over and over and over again, because apparently at some point you will be successful. You will find happiness. You will find the love of your life. You will find the best job. You will have the nicest house. You'll have the greatest kids. All of this over and over again, following a supposed dream that society has given to us, that outside of us says is here, and yet it's very fleeting. And many people do not find the answer there. Unfortunately for many people, they do not know there's a different way. They don't know that there is something else they could choose, because up to this point they've been 100%, you might say, unconscious in the fact that this subconscious mind has been driving them all along. So it's quite the wake-up call when you come to that crossroads.
So we talked about how the subconscious mind holds our definition for the way the world works, the way relationships should work, and we always live by that definition without knowing it. Most people, regardless of the amount of success or all of the methods they've tried to end their suffering, people from all different walks of life still suffer from this feeling, and feeling of longing without knowing what you're longing for, desiring something and not really knowing what. But basically it just boils down to a feeling of emptiness, an emptiness that you can't find a cure for. And it's something I have experienced. It's something I feel like everybody's out there experiencing, that where no matter what you achieve, it's not enough. And we're trying to fill our cups from things in the outside world. Why does that never work for us?
Most people, to get back to suffering, most do not know they're suffering. Most would not look at it that way. Yet, inside themselves, they're suffering. I would suggest that most people are depressed. If you were to walk outside your door and take a walk to any supermarket, any place of business, you would notice that most people walk with their heads down. Very few have smiles on their faces. Even if they pick their heads up and look at you eye to eye, there's not a smile on their face. There's almost an emptiness that you see within them. So most do not know they're suffering, number one. And so this is again a wake-up call of understanding that what's outside of us isn't the answer, never has been, but most get trapped in looking outside themselves for it. The outside world is nothing but a world of attachment. And the more you attach yourself to the outside world, the more you suffer. The more you try and get more things, the more you suffer. The more you bring more people into your life, just to have more people. The more you have more things in your life, more cars, more golf clubs, more food, more things. You walk away from a life of simplicity and you walk into a life of need. I need these things. Why do you need these things? Because first of all, the ego says you need them to keep the program alive. The other aspect of need is that society tells you you need these things so that you can fulfill your definition of who you're supposed to be in society. If I do not have these things, these statuses even, this place in society, if I do not have that, then I will not be accepted according to society. So there's a sense of going outside yourself, creating needs that continue the program to stay alive, but also creating needs to be attached to the outside world. And this just keeps happening over and over and over again. The need will cause you great harm because you will give all your energy to it. You will do everything you can to fulfill this need, to fulfill something that something else is telling you to do. This really isn't your choice. In some ways, you might say, well, yeah, it's my choice because I'm choosing it. No, you're choosing it because you are attached to the outside world. So the outside world is telling you that you need it. The outside world is actually choosing it for you. You're just following blindly because you want to be attached to what's going on outside of you. It's a really vicious circle. So you got two aspects of this. The first aspect is the internal need to fulfill your own program, whatever that might be. And then there's the need to go outside yourself to be accepted by society and others. And you look for the need to do that as well. So we have two things that we're following here that could be really difficult to break away from. Within all that, the, how would I say it, the energy or the way that you have chosen to go after those two things provides the suffering because you give your energy away to it all. There is no love for yourself here. You're seeking outside yourself. You're finding a way to fulfill someone else's, something else's way of telling you that you're loved or that you're accepted or that you can fit in. The suffering comes in because we give ourselves away to it and we don't even know we're doing it. The amount of energy it takes to hold these boxes together, the amount of energy it takes to feel unworthy and keep that going, you might say is 4 or 5 times greater than if I was just in a place of balance and harmony. So we're giving ourselves away to it, and most people are unconscious that they're even doing it. They don't even know it's going on. And then they wonder why they're so tired at night, or why at the end of the week they just don't have any strength left, or they have to take drugs to keep themselves going. The effects of what happens by following the program and following what's going on emotionally can tear your physical body apart. Now, we can go into that in depth as well, but at this time, to just give you a preview as to what is really happening here and whether you want to take the chance to take a look at yourself in the mirror, try and identify yourself with a specific trait or program, ego, strategy, however you want to look at it, so you can finally understand what it is that you've been doing this whole time. It can be a very valuable piece of information for each individual. It can get them on the road back to being, you might say, balanced, in a place of happiness, begin the stages of finally understanding what self-love could be. So it's not all negative. It's not about looking at this stuff and saying, oh my God, all you're talking about how bad everything is and how suffering is and so on and so forth. Well, unfortunately, that's what we've done up to this point. If you're 60 years old and for your whole life, all you've done is follow your box, that's all you've done. Can you say you lived life fully? Well, you could say you live life fully according to your box. And I would suggest to you, life told you how to live fully. One of the aspects that we work on here is to reverse that way of understanding, experiencing, which means to disconnect myself from life for a while. It doesn't mean you're not going to go to your job or you have your family or anything like that. But what it means is you kind of put it aside for a little while to start searching yourself, to find out who you are and what you've created. Once we go through that process, and it's an intense process for sure, it takes time, but once we go through that process and we find ourselves and we find how authentic we can be within our hearts, represent ourselves to life, and you will tell life, I'm not going to live the way you want me to live. I'm going to live the way my heart tells me to live. So you're not disconnecting yourself from life. You're actually bringing yourself back to life in a full way. Experience it life in every aspect that it has to offer.